Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom to all of you here in the Biblical Lifestyle Center. We have a few folks wandering in now, and good to see everybody this morning. It's a absolutely gorgeous day in Texarkana, USA. I welcome all those who are watching by the internet today. Thank you for tuning in and giving us this ultimate privilege of speaking into your homes and speaking into your families and your bloodlines in your life, and also to your countries, to your cities, to the places where you dwell. May the Torah go forth from the whole heart of a king, from this throne, and may it pierce into and pulsate in your place of abode, your place of work, your place of trading, your place of influence. If you would, give us a note. Let us know you're with us. Let us know where you are, basically, and what continent, what country, maybe what city or village you're in. If you have a prayer request, or if you happen to have a comment or a question you'd like to have addressed, we'll try to do that in the comments section at least. And this will be available also on YouTube, so you can do it anytime this week. And I encourage you to go, if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel. I get no money for that. Just subscribe to it so you can get the notices that the new messages have come out. And you can also comment in that arena and not be subject to all the Facebook rules and stuff like that. So thank you for joining us. This is the last week of our study, of our annual journey through this amazing book in the center of the Torah called Vayikra, known in our world, American world, as Leviticus. Vayikra, and he called. This is the book of bridal calling for the people of God. If you want to know what your calling is all about, if you want to understand why you're called, to what you're called, with what empowerment you are called and prepared, this book, Vayikra, is your source, your ultimate source material. There are many things that will be built upon it. The book of Deuteronomy, for instance, will build largely upon the base, or the foundational base of the calling that is spelled out for us in Vayikra. And then beyond that, the prophets and the writings and the Brit Hadashah and the book of Revelation, all will come forth out of this calling to Kedusha, calling to holiness as we translate in English. But it's so much more than what we think of in our Western mindset of holiness. Kedusha is the pulsing energy of the creator of the universe as he sits enthroned on his beauty realm. It pulses into all those who gaze upon him, all those who attach themselves to him, all those who worship before him, and then it begins to be transmitted, absorbed into the life of those people. And so this idea of Kedusha is not to find some nice standard of holiness as we in the Western think and live up to it. It is instead to absorb the king's own holiness. And that's why he keeps saying, be holy as I am holy, is his words. Not be holy as you can be holy. Be holy as I am holy, and the only way you can do that is to forget your external standards of holiness and draw down the Kedusha of my beauty realm, of my place of abode. So today we say farewell to this beautiful book of Vayikra. We begin to change our focus. There's a transition that begins to take place this week and really starts next week and in fullness. But this transition goes from what our calling is to how to walk it out in real time, under difficult circumstances, under the challenges of real life. We had an introduction to this last week. Last week when we had the final narrative of the Kedusha Discourse in chapter 24 of Leviticus, we had this interruption of this beautiful free flow of downloaded revelation from the king, this voice, the spoken words of the king flowing over us. We had this interruption, and we had this unpleasant experience where a man, the son of Shelomit of the tribe of Dan, she was a woman of the tribe of Dan. He was a son of hers by virtue of some kind of a liaison with an Egyptian. So he was half Egyptian and half Hebrew. And he had walked through everything that the people of the Holy One who had came out of Egypt had walked through as well. He'd seen the miracles. He'd seen the wonders. But something caused him to interrupt the shalom of the camp, to get all up in his emotions, to to get all up in his sense of what's right and wrong and what is and isn't, what's theologically possible, what's theologically not, whatever his motivation, whatever. He got lost sight of everything he had known, everything he had seen, and he got all up into his flesh. And he burst forth into the camp, and he began to cause division. He began to say things that were demeaning and critical. That was his approach, the demeaning, critical approach. He kalal in Hebrew. It says he basically diminished, belittled the things, the people that were there, and the things that they were doing, and the way in which things were happening. And then he went further than that, and he nachabbed, he blasphemed is the English way of saying it, hollowed out the outer surface of, and hollowed out the essence of who the Holy One was. And he projected the Holy One as merely an image, merely a form, as opposed to being the heartbeat of who he really is, the persona, the majesty, the wonder, the glory of who he is. He just became a title or a name that he projected, and he blasphemed the Holy One in that way. And so we saw the shock. We felt the shock that in our camp, after we have been redeemed, after we've been blood bought, after the Torah has been given to us, after we've been received this beautiful bridal calling, after he's taught us to distinguish between the holy and the profane, and between the clean and the unclean, as we tend to walk this line, to be his witnesses in the world, to be the light bearers of the kingdom in this world, even yet we have this thing. People in our own camp will lose their shalom, and they will get critical and angry, and they will condemn and criticize and accuse and blame, and then they will talk about the Holy One like he's not in the room. They will talk about him like he's a theological concept, a construct of our imagination. They will talk about him the way other nations talk about their gods, as opposed to reverently and with awe and with wonder, speaking, whispering his name with reverence. Well, that's what we found out last week. We thought we were through with all that. We thought we left all that stuff behind in Egypt. We thought we left all that stuff behind in Babylon. We thought we left all that stuff behind in America. We thought we left that stuff behind in South Africa and in Australia and in the Philippines and in New Zealand and in France and in Israel, in the modern Israel. And we thought we left it behind in the United Kingdom. We thought we left it behind in South America. We thought we left it behind in North America. We thought we left it behind in Central America. But what we found out, it's still here. It's alive and well in us. That flesh is still alive. And that flesh, on a moment's notice, with just the right provocation, can erupt and cause havoc and actually work at counter purposes to the kingdom's plan. So here we are. We had that shocking revelation last week. What are we going to do with that revelation? How are we going to live with the fact that darkness resides in our hearts, in people of our camp, in one another, in us? What are we going to do with it? We have this darkness that is like the son of Shelomit. He was a son of a woman of peace, but he was not a man of peace. What do we do with that knowledge? How do we interact? How do we keep our focus on who we are called to be, on this beautiful calling that the Holy One has given to us? Well, the Holy One's going to give us two basic medicines this week, two focuses. We have Parsha Behar, in which we'll get the first focus. And then we conclude with the second portion of the week, Parsha Bechukotai, which is provides the second focus. And the first focus that's provided is going to be the land. The land. Did you forget the land? Did you forget where we're going? Did you forget the destination? Did you forget the destiny? Did you forget that's where the heartbeat of the kingdom is, in the land. It started with Abraham. From the calling, it started before Abraham. I'll have to go back a little bit more to get you in tune with this idea of our connection, our design connection with the land. It actually goes back to Genesis chapter 2. Imagine you're Adam, and you have only known one thing. You've known the touch of the Creator and his persona and his conversation, the sound of his voice and the feeling of his breath upon your being. You've known only the Creator. You've known only this relationship of creator and created being, and then you've known his breath in your face, in your nostrils. You've known his pulsing energy flowing through your body. You've known this, and that's all you have ever known. And then one day, the Holy One says, and takes you and puts you in this place he has prepared for you. He puts you in the place he is going to give you to steward, to micromanage, to be the manager of this ecosystem. He puts you in the Garden of Eden. He puts you in this place of extreme, unimaginable beauty, fruitfulness, productivity, shalom. He puts you right there as like, wow. I hope you can feel this sense of, I don't deserve this. I don't even know what to do with this. You tell me to, English, tend it and keep it. Shamar it and abide it. You tell me these things to do this, but wow, I don't even know what this place is. And I don't know how it works. I don't know but it's beautiful. And I feel connected to it in ways I don't even understand. That was the first placement of a human being who knows his king in a physical, geographical location. Now, here's the funny thing about that. The destiny of man was not the Garden of Eden, not at that time, not for this period. He has journeys to make. There's journeys that the man was designed to make. The Holy One knew he was going to make those journeys before he put him in the garden. But the garden was his home spot. The garden was home base. I mean, most of us have been children. Some of us had more childhood than others, but most of you played hide and seek. You know, when you were a kid, right? You played hide and seek, and you had this magical place called home base. It was my porch, my front porch. My front porch is where we all started. The game started at the front porch. And at the front porch, you know, that's where you decided who was going to hide and who was going to seek, and you decided, you know, we're going to count to 10, you're going to count to 20, what are you going to count, and how long it's going to take, and what's connected to what, and then you turned your head if you were selected to be the one who counted and sought. You turned your head, you closed your eyes, you covered your eyes with your hand, as the case may be, and others went forth into the unknown, went forth into the places of the world, went forth into the nooks and the crannies of the creation, and they were going to find a place, but that was not where they were going to stay. That was just where they were going to be stationed. That's where they were going to choose to be stationed, but they knew that you don't win the game there. You don't win the game in your hiding place. You win the game when you make it back home. You make it back to home base. Well, this is the idea. The Holy One has always, from the very beginning of his relationship with man, designed for man to have a home base, to sense a connection beyond imagination to his home base, a sense of a connection that would be so strong that the temptation to get caught up in the places where you're hiding and forget that you're playing a long run game, the long game. And it's the key is what happens back at the home base. If you forget that, then you get what I call deployment attachment syndrome. It's a phrase, I'll say it again so you understand. Deployment attachment syndrome. We are all on deployment. We have a home. We have a kingdom base, but we are all on deployment. Here we are in Texarkana, USA. Here you are in New Zealand or the Philippine Islands. Here you are in Malaysia. Here you are in England, or here you are in France. Here you guys are from Paris or from Blossom or from all the different places you guys are from. Here you are from Texarkana. Here you are from Falk and from Genoa. Here you are, and from Wake Village, and here you are. We're that's our deployment. That's just our place of deployment. Here we are in the U.S. of A. for some of us. This is just our place of deployment. Be careful with the deployment attachment syndrome. When you get too attached to your place of deployment, you forget the beauty and the majesty and the calling of home. The calling of your home base. Israel, Eretz Yisrael. That is our home base. The writer of the book of Hebrews understood this perfectly. We get to the whole book, but particularly chapters 11 and 12. He starts talking about Abraham. And what did he talk about Abraham? He could have said a lot of things about Abraham. He could have said so much about Abraham. He said what did he say about him? His emunah was based, the center point of his emunah was that he was looking. He was searching for a city, a place, a home base. This was his drive. This was his passion. This was what made Abraham, and not the other stuff he did. Those were things that came along with it. The calling to the homeland, the calling to the place prepared. He said he was looking for a city not built by human hands. He wasn't looking for a culture to fit into. He wasn't looking for a nation to support. He was looking for a nation to support him. He was looking for a homeland, a city with foundations, a city whose builder and maker is none other than the one who breathed life into you, the one who called you, the one who made you, the one who designed you, the one who sets you strategically in this world at this time for this season for a kingdom mission purpose. Well, that's what we do. I've lost my PowerPoint. I wasn't looking at it anyway, so let's try it again. Hold on just a second. Yeah, I think when my wife reset the computer this time, and it has a certain stage to go to sleep, and I think it naturally brought the go to sleep too early. So I'm going to have to keep punching the buttons this morning. If you see me punching buttons, it's just to keep the thing awake. Sometimes I have to do that to myself. So Bahar, the first key to not getting caught up and in this anger of the blasphemer. This is all object lessons. The Torah didn't just throw this message in there because it happened. He knew it was going to happen. He strategically understood it was going to happen. He brought them to this point so it would happen, so they would have to deal with it, so we would have to deal with the fact that you live in the midst of a people of unclean lips. And you yourself are men of unclean lips. And we are still called to all the things the Creator of the universe called us to. The beautiful calling of being holy as He is holy. The beautiful calling of being His sons and daughters. Being the ones, we'll see what happens in the second part. When we and sons and daughters come to the land, there is something going to happen. Because the land's been waiting for us as much as we've been waiting for the land. Well, we'll wait for that a little while. The land is the first key. If you can stay focused on the destiny, if you can keep that Abrahamic mindset, that I'm looking for a city. I'm looking for this land He promised me from the very beginning. What did He say? He said, go to a land I will show you. If you lose that focus, folks, you'll get caught up in your political arguments. You get caught up in your deployment attachment syndrome. You get angry about what this group is doing and that group is doing. You get upset about the fact that it's not fair and it isn't right and it isn't just and you're right, but it doesn't matter. You'll be upset at people who have different theology than you do. Because, the sages say that the blasphemer narrative was, and again, whether it's true or not, I don't even care. It's not about that. It's to tell you a story. The sages wanted you to understand the challenges of life, the challenges you face. And so, according to the sages, according to the Talmud, the reason the blasphemer got all excited was because he heard the priests saying about the table of showbread and the bread that they placed every week on the table of showbread. Now, nobody goes into the holy place except the priests. The Kohanim go in. And, once a week, according to the last chapter 24 of Leviticus, they put out a fresh 12 fresh loaves of bread on the table of showbread. They sprinkle it with frankincense every Shabbat. And then it lasts all week. It stays there all week. And according to the legend, according to the Torah, to the Talmud, what happens is that the priests come out excited because what happens is that they find that the bread stays hot. The bread that they placed on that table of showbread in the holy place stayed hot, stayed warm the entire week until the next Sabbath. And during that entire week, the heat of that bread caused that frankincense and the scent of that frankincense to continue to send forth its fragrance all through the tabernacle and all into the world. And the blasphemer, according to the legend, scoffed, said, that's not possible. You're making that up. That's not true. That's just some wives' tale. I can't believe that. Now, it's kind of funny when he saw what happened in Egypt. He lived there. He saw what happened at the Sea of Reeds. He walked through the sides of the water. He saw what happened at Mount at Marah, where the manna began to fall and fell every day. He saw the water come forth from a rock from Rephidim. He saw all these things. He saw he saw the mountain shake, and the shofar, heard the shofar that came from heaven blowing on Mount Sinai. He saw the words come forth like lightning bolts out of heaven and piercing into the soul and the spirit. He was there too. He saw the tabernacle get built and everybody get suddenly focused on activity, and he saw 4.5 months worth of total shalom in the camp. He saw then the first day of Nisan, the first day of Aviv, the first day of the first month after the Exodus, and he saw what do you say? He saw the creator of the universe, his glory, fill the tabernacle. Fill it, Malay, just pulsing out of it, overwhelming, and he saw that. And then he saw 8 days later, on the 8th day after, he saw that the blessing of Aaron and Moshe together, they blessed the people, they blessed the land, they blessed the world, they blessed the Holy One, and suddenly fire comes out of heaven. He saw this. He saw it with his own eyes. He felt it in his own spirit. The blasphemer did. The son of Shelomit. But suddenly, hearing somebody else talk about what they saw and what they know about bread staying hot for 7 days and causing frankincense to fill the atmosphere, suddenly he was theologically more superior to them. Theologically, he knew more than they did, so theologically, that couldn't happen. It wasn't within his paradigm of God consciousness. And because it wasn't in his paradigm of God consciousness, he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. It was false, and it was a reason to cause all sorts of dissension and division in the camp. I hope you're feeling what we're feeling here. I hope you're getting this is more than just about that blasphemer. This is about every theological argument you ever got into in your entire life, or that you ever will get into in your entire life. Every time you take somebody else's story about their God consciousness and you say that can't happen, that couldn't happen, that's not real, you may be right, you may be wrong, but you know what? That's not your calling. It's not why you're here. Oh, well. So that was what happened. Oh, I saved it. Good. And so we've come out of that. How will we handle it? The land. Focus on the land. Focus on our home. Focus on our calling. Focus on our mission. What is Eretz Yisrael? What is the land of Israel to you? This is a question that has to be asked this year, this time of year, this week, and then beyond, every single year of your life. You need to be asked. You need to ask and understand the answer to this question. What is Eretz Yisrael to you? What is the land of Israel to you? And what do you think you are to it? Second question. What do you think you are to the land of Israel? What does it matter to the land of Israel? Who you are, where you are, what you say, what you do. What does it matter? Do you understand your eternal connection to that? Just like Adam supposedly was always weeping for the Garden of Eden, what mankind had lost after the expulsion took place. He sat, according to the Talmud, whether they did or not, is not. You see the picture here. He sat in the waters of the spring of Gihon as they exited the garden, and he wept that he had lost this Garden of Eden, that he had lost his homeland, that he was being sent out to deployment in the world to fulfill other function. Now, do you have a sense of that? I tremble myself. You know, I get deployment attachment syndrome all the time. Folks, I mean, look, somebody asked a question on an online forum recently, and it was a pointed question. You could tell the point, the kind of the tinge, the sharp edge in it. But the question was, do any Messianic teachers out there, any Torah teachers out there love America? Careful how you answer that. Careful how you define love. Be careful how you define your connection to this country. The answer to the question is, of course they do. But the answer is, but that does not mean we're going to get on your political bandwagon. That does not mean we're going to take your offense, your party's offense, your movement's offense. That does not mean that. That means we're looking beyond where you're looking. You're looking for the next 2 years, and we're looking for the next millennium. There's a big difference in whether you love America in the millennial sense or whether you love America and your vision of it in the present tense. Now, this is a major shift to the way we think. Saved it. So, Bahar, we get to begin to chapter 25, verse 1. I'm going to go ahead and start some readings here. I will tell you that the second part, you need to understand there's a second medicine, a second pill that the Holy One is going to give to keep us from getting too much into this deployment attachment syndrome. And that will be the vision for redemption. Ge'ulah. The idea that we're here to be redeemers. That we're not here to be accusers. We're not here to be condemners. We're not here to be judges. We're not here to be enemies to this world. We're here to be redeemers. We're here to carry forth the vision of redemption the Creator has put in us and to be always about the concept, always looking for the opportunity, always looking for the window and the means of the Torah's idea of redeeming. So that's the second aspect of keeping you focused. If you stay focused on that, you won't get so excited on a day-by-day basis of things you see that you don't like, things that you don't agree with, things you don't believe in, things you don't believe are in the best interest of your present-day situation, whether it be in your country, your family, your home, your city, whatever it may be. Now, that was where I want us to read. We're going to begin with chapter 25 of Leviticus, verse 1. We'll read for a little while. We're going to stand, those of you who can. If you're physically unable, I understand that. You can stand in your heart, but if we're going to stand, and as we stand before we read and hear, just as our common practice, we speak what I call the blessing of the house. We bless the Holy One and His Word. And it's very common. It's taken right out of Psalm 119. It's sort of unique, I guess, to our house as far as I know. But if you know it, go ahead and say it along with me. And if you don't know it, just enjoy, hopefully. Open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things from your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. So do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your Torah. For your Torah is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our paths. Amen. Beginning with chapter 25, this will be from the English. And the Holy One spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, Bahar Sinai, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, or to the children of Israel, and say to them, When you come into the land that I give you, then the land will keep a Sabbath to the Holy One. 6 years you are to sow your field. 6 years you are to prune your vineyard and to gather its fruit. But in the 7th year, there will be a Sabbath of solemn rest to the land, a Shabbat, a Sabbath to the Holy One. And you will neither sow your field, nor prune your vineyard. Now what grows of its own accord of your harvest you may not reap, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine. For it is a year of rest to the land, for the land. And the Sabbath produce of the land will be food for you and your male and female servants, for your hired man, and for the stranger who dwells among you, for your livestock and the beasts that are in the field and the land. All of its produce shall be for food. And you are to count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself. 7 times 7 years. And the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. And then you are to cause the shofar of the Yovel, the Jubilee as it's called in English, to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the Day of Atonement, the day of Yom Kippur, you are to make the shofar, the trumpet, sound throughout the land. And you are to consecrate the 50th year. And you are to proclaim Doror throughout liberty, freedom, throughout all the land to its inhabitants. And it shall be a Yovel for you. And each of you shall return to his possession. And each of you shall return to his family. And that 50th year shall be a Yovel to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of its own accord, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is the Yovel. It is to be holiness to you. You are to eat its produce from the field. In this year of Yovel, each of you shall return to his ancestral possession, home base. And if you sell anything to your neighbor, or you buy from your neighbor's hand, you are not to oppress, to do violence one to another. You, according to the number of years after the Yovel, you are to buy from your neighbor. And according to the number of years of crops, he is to sell to you. According to the multitude of years, you shall increase its price, and according to the lower number of years, the fewer number of years, you will diminish its price, for he sells to you according to the number of the years of the crops. And therefore, you are not to oppress, do violence to one another, but you are to fear your God, for I am the Holy One, your God. So you shall observe my statutes and keep my judgments and perform them, and you will dwell in the land in safety, and the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill, and you will dwell there in safety. Amen. You may be seated. Thank you. What is this? What is that? What kind of land is that? What kind of homeland, what kind of home base are we destined for? What has he got planned for us? I mean, we could be kind of like the son of Shalomit here. That doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. I don't believe that. A land's going to do what you said it's going to do. That if you don't sow, and you don't prune, and you don't reap, even the things that grow, if you don't take the harvest in bushels and baskets of that, you just take one bit at a time and eat it, and let your servants eat it, and let your neighbors eat it, and let the foreigner eat of it. And you're going to do that every 7th year, and then at the end of those 7 sevens of years, you're going to do it twice. Double it. You're going to break the cycle of 7. You're going to build a new one year. This Yovel year, you're again not going to sow. You didn't sow last year. You didn't prune last year. You didn't reap last year. And here it is another year, 2nd year in a row. You're not going to sow. You're not going to reap. You're not going to prune. And you're expecting to get fed. And he says you're going to be fed to the full. You're going to eat to your full. And you'll live in peace and shalom. Well, I don't believe that. I saw the sea part. I saw the water come from the rock. I saw the bread fall from heaven. I saw the presence of the Creator of the universe. He's real to me. I felt him, but I don't believe that. Well, this is the challenge. Can you stay focused on something that's beyond your capacity to understand, Are you a person of reason, or are you a person of emunah? Are you a person who trusts the Holy One to do supernatural things, or are you a person who wants a reasonable faith, a logical faith, things that make sense to you, and then you can add to that little things that you see from time to time, little miracles for one time only, the parting of the sea, etc., etc. What is your nature of your relationship with the Creator of the universe? That's what this book is, what this Parsha in particular is about. We're going to need to know before we head off into the wilderness, which is next week. Well, and next few weeks. We'll be putting all this stuff to the test. The stuff we've learned, the stuff we've heard, the things about our holiness calling. the idea of who in the world we're called to be and where we're going and what kind of lifestyle we're supposed to live when we get there, we're going to need to know these things. We're going to need to know where do we stand? Who is the Holy One to us? And who are we to Him? Is this just about our individual salvation or maybe our family getting blessed? Is this all about us going to heaven when we die? Is this all about having the blessings of God on our table, in our house, and our children being blessed, and our grandchildren being blessed? Who is the Holy One to us? And who do we think we are to Him? I mean, is He a sugar daddy? Is He a Santa Claus figure? I'm sorry for the profanity. Is He that? We make our wish list and present it to Him, and because He likes us, He's going to do these things for us whenever the time comes. Is that who He is? Is that who we are to Him? Is that who we think? This is that challenging issue. Do you really know who this is that breathed life into you? Who redeemed you from the bondage? Do you know who this person, this persona, this very real life force is, and what He thinks and what He wants and what His plan is? Do you know who that is? Or is He just a theological construct to you that fits into your imaginations and suits your purposes and makes you feel more superiorly, morally to other people because you believe in Him and they don't? What is the Holy One to you? And He challenges. He says, I'm going to give you a vision that is so amazing you will not even be able to understand it, much less in your own natural mind you will not be able to believe it. You will not be able to believe that if you, in the 7th year that you're in their land, first of all, you're not going to believe that when you go into it, what is going to happen? When you enter into this land, this home base, it's going to have a Sabbath. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The rivers will dance. It will celebrate. The land will be like alive because it's been waiting all these centuries, all these millennia, waiting for you, waiting for the sons and daughters of God. If you don't understand this, you will make no sense of Paul's writings in Romans 8 and 9, 10, and 11. Romans 8, 9, 10, and 11, and this whole idea of all creation groans in eager expectation. I'm not talking about some theology of the sons of God. I'm talking about the fact that the land is going to respond to you because it's been waiting for you. It is waiting for you now. It is hungering, and it will breathe this sigh of life. And here, if you have a plant, you ever have like a garden or maybe a house plant. The house plant, particularly, if you take it inside the light, it can sort of grow. It can sort of live. You water it. You give it a little artificial light. Put a little Miracle-Gro on it. You do whatever you can do to make this little plant as good as it can get. But what if one day you open the shade or the curtains, put it right in front of the window, and the sun came beaming through that window onto that plant for the first time it had ever happened? Watch the plant, folks. Watch what happens to that plant. Watch what happens in that pot. Watch what happens in the atmosphere as that plant begins to respond to what was created to bring it life, what was created to bring its growth forward, to bring it to its best possibility. Watch what happens when that first ray of sunlight begins to pour into it and the light of the whole countenance. We are light carriers. That's what we are, right? And so we're bringing this light, and when the earth sees it, the earth will, it's supernatural. It's beyond your capacity to think. You can't understand it. Why would the land respond to me and you and you and you and millions of others across the world like that? How will the earth know? How will the trees? How will the plants? How will the fields? How will the stones of that land know? Well, they were programmed to it. They were programmed to know. We will give, and say, okay, I don't believe that. There we go. Here we are, back to the blasphemer narrative again. This is why the Holy One said, I'm going to put this up there. I'm going to put the goal, the bar so high that you know you cannot reach it without me picking you up and carrying you there. So he says, the first thing is, what's going to happen to the land? Do you know who you are to the land? Because I have conversations all the time with folks who have never been to the land of Israel. And I try to build enthusiasm and excitement for them. That's my job. I could talk about how I don't like their politics. I could talk about how I don't like their government, the way it's structured. I could talk about how I don't like the political theory of how they elect a government, how they elect a prime minister, and I could talk about all that stuff, but that's not my job. You know what my job is? To stir that passion in people for that land, because the land needs them there. The land is waiting for them there. So if you understand I don't care who the governor is. I don't care who the prime minister is. I don't care who the president is. It isn't about that. It's about the fact that this is the destiny of the land. I hope you're connecting to Eretz Yisrael. Hope you understand it's waiting for you. It's waiting for your family. It's waiting for your bloodline to return. Now, when you go, I always tell them, when you go, the first time you go, no matter how much you try not to, you're going to go as a tourist. You're going to want to see the sights. And the guides, if you go with a guide or you go with a trip, they're going to want to show you the sights, the famous places, the buildings, the structures that have been built. Place where this happened and that happened, supposedly. After the first time, the second time, the third time you go, at some point down the road, I want you to change your focus. I want you to begin to listen. Wait a minute, this is not about me going to see sights. I could see sights wherever I go. I could see sights online. I could go through virtual tours. I could get this. Why am I going to Israel? Why am I going to the Holy Land, as it's called? Why am I going to the Holy Land? Why am I going there? Why am I making this trip? It's not a tourist trip. You're looking for home base. There's a place there for you. There's a place there that's assigned to your bloodline. You say, but I'm a Gentile. Now, the bloodline I'm talking about is this engrafted bloodline of the covenant that flows from Abraham. And I'm looking out there, and I'm seeing all these different parts of this blood. It says, somewhere in that land somewhere in that nation, there is a place that has your blood in it, your life force waiting to call you. That's your home. That will be your place in the millennial kingdom. That you will live there with your family in real time on the real earth in the millennial kingdom. That's not some heavenly pie in the sky stuff I'm talking about. This is going to happen when Messiah reigns from Jerusalem. And that place will be your home. Now, so when you go, after the second or third time, you get through all the sites, you visit all the places, start looking for your home. Start looking for home base. This is where you'll go. And when you do that, when you realize that Abraham had this vision, that's why he kept looking. He kept looking for that city, built a city with foundations, whose builder and maker was God. All right. So he says the first thing is that the land is going to have a Sabbath. It will have a season of awakening. And when you hear the psalmist things like the trees clap their hands and the rivers dance and the mountains melt before like wax. I mean, obviously you are carrying the very presence. The idea is you're carrying the very presence of the Holy One. There is a key. There is one key. There is one prerequisite, one condition, one proviso, one quid pro quo, one caveat that we'll get to in Parsha Bechukotai. If, as, when, and to the extent you walk in my statutes, and you treasure and walk in and keep my commandments. When that happens, you see then the two things come together. The moisture, the heat, the sun come together, and then life begins to birth forth. But it's conditional. It's not just your presence. It's your presence as and when, and as and to the extent you walk in his statutes and as you keep his commandments. Now again, is God only to you that which is going to take you to heaven when you die? Take care of food, putting food on your table? I mean, he is all those things, hopefully, but he's more than that. And his calling upon your life is a whole lot more than that. It is about how you're going to play a part in his grand redemptive plan. For the redemption of mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, and to restore creation to its original intended Edenic state of beauty, fruitfulness, and shalom where it can be truly home base for mankind the way it was designed. Well, this is our calling. And if I can get back into my PowerPoint, whenever you talk, whenever you begin to flow in the Holy One talks, you begin to realize everything you prepared can just kind of be forgotten. But the next slide that I do care about starts with this. This is the real challenge of Bahar and Behukatai. Do you have a lover's heart? Or a theologian's mind? Which one do you have? I mean, I'm talking to people who obviously are listening to me for a reason. They're not strangers off the street. Most of you are listening to me for a reason, because you have either a lover's heart or a theologian's mind. I'm not saying they have to be mutually contradictory, but I'm afraid in most situations they are. They should not be, but they in most situations they are. You either have one or the other, in other words. And the one and the twain don't match. If you have a lover's heart, in most experience, you're very low on the level of theological mind. That's why Paul kept saying things like, we didn't come to you with words of human wisdom. We didn't come to you talking about things that made the Greeks all say, oh, wow, man, that's erudite. That's amazing how you think. No, we came to you with a very simple message. Do you love him? Do you know him and do you love him? Have you been caught up in the swell of who he is and the majesty of his beauty? So do you have a lover's heart? And if you've lost your lover's heart, I'm so glad you're tuning in today. I'm so glad everybody's here today. Because the creator of the universe, the bridegroom king himself, is calling out to you, have you been reading the Song of Solomon? Because if you're not reading and enduring and endearing yourself into the message and the strategies of the Song of Solomon in this season, you won't be ready for the next season, which is the book of Ruth. Now, if you understand the way this works, God puts wallpaper behind every season. Wallpaper. And the wallpaper of this season, which is counting the Omer, we're counting the Omer. We're in that season now. And according to the traditional count, it's day 41. Yesterday was the anniversary of the Ascension and the beginning of the 10 days when, oh, wow, here we are. 10 days. I can just imagine, we'll talk about that maybe in a minute, what went on in that upper room that first few days, the first of those few 10 days. How much junk we had to get out of the way before we could have real conversations and real talk and real prayer. How much theology we had to unload. How much argumentativeness and frustration and how much political debate we had to go through about whether Herod was right and wrong and whether Pontius Pilate was a jerk and what all the things, how much junk we had to get rid of in those first 10 days to get real and get back to a lover's heart. Well, here we are. This is that time. But the wallpaper for this season is the Song of Solomon, which we read at Passover and into the days of the counting the Omer. And then about now is when we shift over to the book of Ruth. The wallpaper, the prophetic wallpaper, the Megillah of the season is the book of Ruth. And here's the difference in the messages. And what's the theme of Song of Solomon? Most of you know. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. Ani dodi v'dodi li. I am my beloved's, and he is mine. I am unto him. I am of him. In the Gettysburg Address that we all know, Lincoln used these phrases. A government of the people, for the people, and by the people shall not perish. In Hebrew, it would be one letter. La. La dodi. Unto, I am for, I am by him, I am of him, I am for him. As we have to take 3 words in English to say that one phrase, one letter, one Hebrew letter. La. We are unto the Holy One. This is the theme that we're coming to the place. We must have this theme down. Ani dodi v'dodi li. Are you lovers? Does your heart beat faster when you think of his name, when you think of his persona? Do you love what he loves? Do you absolutely get caught up in the beauty of who he is in his realm and what he designed for you? Are you lovers? Do you have a lover's heart? Well, the next phase is, what's the theme of the book of Ruth? Because we're now shifting focus. What's the theme of the book of Ruth? Where you go, I'll go. Your people will be my people. Your land, my land. Where you die, I will die and be buried. And then the second part of that theme is, whatever he says to do, that do. Now, this is the themes. If you understand the background, the wallpaper of the season, this is the themes he's trying to get to, and the methodology he's going to use is the languages of Parsha Bahar and Bechukotai. Those messages are exactly the same. Are you lovers? Do you have a lover's heart? Or do you just a theologian's mind? If you have a theologian's mind, you'll want to argue with other theologians. But if you have a lover's heart, you're going to want to love with other lovers. You're going to want to draw off their love energy for God and for humanity, for the creation, for Eretz Yisrael. You're going to draw off that inspiration, draw off that energy. You're going to draw off that power, and you're going to synergize with them, and you're going to love like the lovers and love with the lovers as opposed to argue with the theologians. I said, theoretically, we should be able to do both. But I haven't seen it done very well. I haven't been able to do it very well. I find the moment I get off into theological, my theology is right and yours is wrong, the moment I do that, my lover capacity begins to diminish and dwindle. And I hear the voice of the Messiah written on the scroll. I have one thing against you, Bill. Oh, you're really good at theology, son. Oh, you're really good about being right and thinking you're right and arguing your point and making your contentions and making your bullet points. You're really good at that, but one thing I have a lot against you. Where's your lover's heart? Where's that heart that you love me? Where's the passion? Where's the drive? Where's the energy? Where's the inspiration? Where's the synergy that I put in you? Why have you become a theologian instead of a lover? Well, I hope that call goes out to somebody in this room today, and maybe somebody in the world out there that's watching on this video or will watch on YouTube. So the first thing is, do you have a lover's heart or just a theologian's mind? Because theologians' minds are a dime a dozen. One's not much better than the other, but lovers' hearts. Well, when you're a lover, you'll find a way to find the right theology, and that's all that will matter to you, the lover. Second question is, do you have a mission vision? Mission vision. It kind of ties in with this whole deployment attachment. Now, deployment attachment idea, when we actually get distracted by the land we're living in and by the society we're in and the culture we're in and the ethnicity we're from. We get distracted by these things which are temporal and mortal and will pass away into nothingness. You know, you don't have an ethnicity, you don't have a culture, your spirit doesn't have any of those things. Oh, that's just a flesh. That's just, are you wheat or are you chaff? Because that's just chaff. All that stuff people are arguing about today is just chaff. Blow it away. The reality is we're eternal spirits, and we have no ethnicity. We have no gender, for that matter. We are eternal spirits. We don't put on this other chaff stuff down here, and then we get obsessed by it, and we get deployment attachment to it. Well, that's what has happened mostly in the world today. We are called to be above that. Now, I call deployment attachment because in the acronym it forms DA, which if you have any Russian, if you've been around any Russians, you know that means yes. DA, deployment attachment, DA, DA. Yes to American dream. Yes to materialism. Yes to political philosophy. Yes to political party and partisanship. Yes, yes. Da. Deployment attachment, deployment attachment, deployment attachment. Da. Now, it's a disease that the body of the Messiah, the Messianic people, the ones who are called to bring a Sabbath to the land, do not have the luxury of indulging. We do not have the time. We do not have the energy. We do not have the mental wherewithal or the calmness of shalom to be able to engage that and also do what we are called to do and be who we're called to be, fulfill the purpose we're called to fulfill in creation. We either choose one or the other. You choose your deployment fixation, your gender arguments, your ethnicity arguments, your political arguments, your theological arguments, your partisanship. You choose it. That or go where he goes and live where he lives, dwell where he dwells, and die where he dies, on what hill he dies on, and be buried. And his people be your people, and his God, your God. Now, this is the idea of being a lover's heart. Do you have a mission vision? Do you know why you're here? Do you think this is just grab all the gusto you can? Enjoy life, take good care of your family, run a good business, to set up a legacy for your children to live off of. Those are all worthy goals of the deployment attachment. You got to live between the supernatural and the natural. We have to balance that out somehow. Those are good natural goals, but they are not the overwhelming goal. They're not the superior goal. The superior goal is the kingdom goal. Do we have a mission vision? What is the mission? I say it over and over again. I've said it already once today. I'll say it again. The creator of the universe doesn't do things by chance. He doesn't just respond to what human beings do. He is proactive. He designed it all before it all began. The creator of the universe has a grand plan for the redemption of humanity as a species, bloodline by bloodline, and for the restoration of creation, geographical region by geographical region, geographical coordinate by geographical coordinate, to the original intended state of beauty, fruitfulness, and shalom that was presented to us in the Garden of Eden. Now, that is the plan. That's what's really happening in the world. Whatever's going on in your government, in your nation, whatever's going on in your economic system or structure, whatever's going on in your education system or in your entertainment system, whatever's going on in any other framework of deployment attachment, that is minor compared to the greater scheme of the grand scheme of the redemption of mankind. That's why the whole end of this story is about redemption. He says, when you come into the land, not only is it going to have a Sabbath, and you're going to start this series of 7 years, and it's going to do supernatural stuff and provide for you when you don't plant, when you don't reap, when you don't prune. It's going to provide for you in miracle ways, in stunning ways, and you'll be eating the fill more than anybody else in the world. You'll be eating, and you didn't plant it, and you didn't reap it, and you didn't prune it, and you didn't make it happen. But then 6 years, you're going to be doing all those things. You got to balance. 6 years, you got to plant, you got to sow, you got to harvest, you got to cultivate, you got to prune, you got to do all these things. But 1 year, I'm going to show you the supernatural power, and then sometimes I'm going to do it twice. So you get this idea of this is the plan to develop us a vision for his strategy. And he's going to say, not only will that happen when you come to land, but when you come into the land, you're never going to own it. Not like in America or other countries that you know of, where you get a deed and you now have rights of season, as we used to call it in the legal form, rights where it is yours. No, you are just a tenant. It's the Holy One's land. And if you ever think that it's not, he's going to remind you over and over again that he can take you out just as quick as he brought you in. He's going to warn you. He's going to give us the tochacha. The tochacha is the warning, the admonition. And there's one in Leviticus chapter 26, and then there's another one in Deuteronomy chapter 28. And there's all sorts of things I could talk to you about that, but I'll skip that because we don't have time. But he's going to warn you, I can take you out any time. If you do not do the two things, which is be the lover, follow the lover's ways, and then walk in my statutes and keep my commandments. If you don't do that, then I've got another place where I can put you on a temporary basis. I'm always going to bring you back, but you need to have a timeout. I'll send you on a timeout if you do that. And it'll be an unpleasant timeout. Matter of fact, he gives us 6 waves in Leviticus 26. There are 6 waves of pulsing negative energy that are designed to draw us back to him. Say, this is not working out for me. I want to go back. I want to be the prodigal. I want to play prodigal to your father's house. And I want to go back home. Even if I'm just a servant, I'll be happy to go back home. This is designed to do that. Well, he's going to do that, and he says that you don't own it. To the contrary, you don't own it, and you can't sell it. You can't dispose of it. You can't deed it to somebody else. You can't give it away. It can't be taken away from you either, for that matter. You could have a transaction with the Arabs if you want to and sell part of it. It's still not theirs. It wasn't yours, so you can't give what you don't own. Therefore, you can't give it away. There's all sorts of political ramifications to that, but that's deployment attachment. The reality is the land belongs to the creator of the universe, and he will do with it what he wants to do with it, and he will bring forth the Edenic state in it, and out of that Edenic state, he will pulse into the world. This is Micah 2 and Isaiah 2, and this idea of the word of the Holy One will go forth from Jerusalem, the word of the Lord from Zion, and then Zechariah chapter 8. I mean, I'm giving you scriptures here. I don't have time to unpack them. But if you don't know what Isaiah 2, and you don't know what Micah 2, you don't know what Zechariah 8, the entire chapter, not just the bit about the 10 people of the nations will go to one Jew and get a hold of his seed. I don't know, the entire chapter, you got a whole Shabbat afternoon to be able to dig into that and see what your destiny is and what the calling of the land, the whole land for this land is. He says you can't sell it, and if you try, if you give a deed, if you give something, some kind of a right to possess to somebody else. Two things. First of all, I'm going to blow it all up in 7 years. 50 years, for sure. Every 50 years, I'm going to blow it right back up. We're going to go to I'm going to put reset. Yovel. Yovel, people always get theological and sentimental about Yovel. Yovel is the most disruptive thing in the entire universe. Yovel is not about getting free. Yovel is about going home. Yovel is about going to home base, getting back, and no matter what you wanted, no matter what you liked, no matter what you got attached to in your deployment syndrome, going back home and taking back the responsibilities, keeping back the responsibilities that he's given to you and your bloodline. So he says, not only that, I'm going to blow it up, you're going to go back every 50 years, at the very least, you're going to be back there. And beyond that is, if somehow or other you give it up, sell it, try to trade it away, then everybody, understand there is always a right to redeem. You can't defeat the right to redeem. You cannot defeat the right to redeem. In the land or in the people of the land, you cannot defeat the right to redeem. The Holy One has reserved the right and for himself and for his people to redeem whatever you think has been sold, whatever you think has been lost, whatever you think has been broken, whatever you think has been ruined. He reserves the right to redeem. Hallelujah. He says the land is your example of this. If you have given away, if you've gotten broke, you wasted your resources, you got taken over by a foreign country, you had a sickness and you lost your home, whatever happened to you, whatever the situation is, not only do you have a right to redeem, but your entire bloodline has a right to redeem. Your kinsman redeemer, Geulah. Someone can come back and not pay an exorbitant price, pay the price of what you lost, according to the value that I set upon it. I will set the value. And so, just as the land can be redeemed, and that's, of course, isn't that the story of Ruth? When we're doing the wallpaper, when we come to the end of the story, the middle part, basically, and toward the end of the story of Ruth that's what exactly happened. The ancient lands, the ancient inheritance that belonged to Mahalon and Elimelech was redeemed by Boaz, a kinsman. He wasn't even the nearest kinsman, but he was given the right to redeem. And he redeemed, and in that redemption came forth so much. Fruitfulness, abundance, and then the very bloodline of Messiah coming forth out of that process. We have that Ruth, who was taken as the wife, became the mother of Obed, and all the way down through David, and all the way then, of course, through Messiah, and all the way down through all those who are engrafted in the covenant through Messiah. Hey, hallelujah. Well, this redemption, in chapter 27, he says it also applies to people. Our God is so good. It applies to your kids. It applies to your grandchildren. It applies to your neighbor. It applies to your enemy. Human beings can always be redeemed. Human beings cannot be sold. They can't be given away. They can't be consigned to. They can always be redeemed. As long as they live, they can be redeemed. So if you have a child, you have a grandchild, you have a great-grandchild, you have a cousin, you have a brother, you have a sister, you have a mother or a father, you have a relative, you have a kinsman. Now, the issue is not what bad things they have done. They may have done bad things. Most of us have. The issue is not how much more sinful they are than you. I won't even get into that argument. The issue is, do you still have a vision for their redemption? Do you still believe that's the plan? Or do you think that God's somehow so mad at them, so angry with them, so offended by what they have done, that he'd rather see them, whatever you want to think may happen in the world to come? I won't even go in there. Do you think he wants them to suffer punishment for whatever level of eternity or olam haba there may be? Is that what you think he wants? Or do you still have not only a lover's heart, but a redeemer's vision? This is the challenge of this week. Well, we are about out of time. I've not covered it in great detail, a lot of the actual specifics. I try not to on these mornings because I know you've got lots of time to study. I have one job. That's to inspire and encourage, to stir something in your heart. I only have a few minutes to do that. To hopefully anesthetize the world's poison in you for a little while, for a few moments. My job. Love my job. But here it is. My job's about, for the day, my work time is about over. So I cry out to you. Is Ani Dodi Vidodi Li? Ani Ladodi Vidodi Li. Is that your heart's cry right now? Are you welling up inside, ready to say when you don't even know what it means yet? Whithersoever you go, I will go. Are you ready to hear the voice of the wise one, the voice of the one who's been down this road and suffered the consequences of sin, to say, whatever he says to do, that do? Well, that's the message of the season. That's the message of this day. Parsha Behar, Parsha Behukatai. See you next week. Shabbat Shalom.